Hi everybody, and I'm sorry I cut off that last one. Definitely didn't mean to. We're going to keep going, and I'm just going to make a bunch here and do them with you. These are the ones we had come up with. These are really fun. These are all dry now, so you can see that they did change the colors a little bit more, and it got them more vibrant. So we're just going to make a bunch up, get some different ideas going here, play around with them. So just one after the other, let's go with it. All right, I'm not sure if it's easier for you to see if I have the craft sheet underneath, so I'm going to do that just because it makes it dark under there. So I'm going to start with some and just do the techniques with the water. And I'm going to use some less paint on this one, less ink than I did the last time. This is Raisin and Butterscotch. And this will let you see more of, if you use less ink, what happens with that. And you might like it better. You might not. You can. I'm going to leave this one as is like this and not do too much to it. Back to some new paper towel here. And one thing I mentioned earlier was using salt, and so I'm going to do that with this one. I want this to sit flat, so a trick on that is if you want it to sit flat, spritz the back with water too, then it's wet on both sides. That makes the paper uncurl. So now it's going to sit flatter for me. And what I'm going to do, actually this is kosher salt, so it's a heavy salt. I'm going to make sure this is nice and wet. Got all this batters there. And then I'm going to sprinkle it with salt. And you can see what that's doing right now. The salt is going to absorb the color, and the hard part on here is let this dry. You gotta let it dry. So maybe a couple hours, just set it aside, and then we're gonna scrape that salt off, and it's gonna be really cool. So that is the salt on top. You can use regular table salt, but the coarser the salt, the better it works. Some people just use cracked sea salt, really big chunky salt, whatever you can find. So that's one. Another one, we're gonna do that same technique using less ink than we used before. I'm going to make this one extra wet, and I'm going to take 2 drops of caramel. Wow, that turned out a different color today when I used so much water. And bottle, which was the other one. You can see already those look really good. I'm going to make this extra wet. Do the butterfly papers on top. Squeeze this all out here. And one of them I'm going to leave as is. The other one I'm going to kind of pick up extra color. So you can see that's going to make a difference. So that one's the extra color. I'll still do that a little bit more. This one I'm actually just going to spritz it down a little to make the colors bleed a little more. We're going to get 2 different effects on those. And wow, that caramel does not look caramel at all. You can even use your paper towel to take some of the inks off, and it's going to give a different look also. So you can see we did both of these with the exact same ones, but they're both very different. So that's a good technique right there. I'll just keep setting these aside to dry. Okay. The next one, let's do another one. And we'll do a quick spritz, not as much on this one. And we're going to do Stream. Well, I must not have much water at all. And we'll do pesto. Okay, this isn't spreading a bit, so I'm definitely going to use extra water on here. Do some tilting. And so there's some tilting on that one. I think we're going to do a couple different techniques on this one. Okay, so I'm going to soak up some of that ink and water. Actually, no, I like that. I'm not sure what you think. So this one we're going to dry a little so that it stays that way. If you want something to stay pretty much the way you have it, dry it off, and that'll help it stay with the look that you have. We're going to set that aside to dry a little more. Any spots that are still wet after I've done that, and you can tell those ones are darker, they're going to dry darker. So this is going to dry with that puddly, wet look to it. So that's kind of fun. Okay. Now we've gotten that far. We're going to go back to that light green one that we did because it's probably almost dry already. That's this one. So while these are like this, to continue with your backgrounds, it's really easy to use your rubber stamps at this time to make your backgrounds. I just use regular black ink. If you use it and it's still slightly damp, which this is slightly damp yet, the ink will bleed. It will make whatever you stamp fuzzy. So if you want that effect, then do what I'm doing right now. And I'm just going to do this kind of like a postal look. So this is going to bleed. It is going to make a little bit of a design on here and bleed. You can see where it's happening right there, and that's exactly what I wanted. So there's one, and here's another. If I stamp more than one time, it's going to give it a lighter look. So if we want to do that, I'll stamp on the side of the paper, then I can go off the edges a bit here and there if I wanted to. So that's going to change that background to that. You can also use your inks to go around the edges. Again, just take your sponge, and the same thing. If it's still damp, it's going to give a softer look. So this will be a softer look right now. It will bleed into the paper a little bit. And you can just kind of go along your edges and soften things up. It all depends on the look you want. If you want a sharper looking image, wait till it's completely dry. Okay, so that's what this is going to do if you stamp on top of those while they're damp. And you can see you still have quite a different look. Okay. So that's one. Again, your craft sheet, this stuff's going to wipe right off. Don't ever worry about ink all over your stuff. Okay, another one just as far as inks. Wow, I got lots of ink on my hands. We're going to go back to the stamp pads instead of just the stamp inks. And one is just using the stamp pads to color over anything. This one I've got a butterscotch, and I'm just going to use it along the edges itself. And you don't have to always use a sponge. You can just use whatever you have. Use it directly from the ink pad. I'm going to take that same color, which is the butterscotch, and I'm going to use a stamp just to make a background. So the more you stamp it, the lighter it becomes. You can do it multiple times to make quite a background. My suggestion on those is not to limit yourself to one stamp. Once you've gotten one color on there, you can add to it in different ways. that was the butterscotch. I'm going to grab a different stamp really quick. And sorry about that weight on there. But you can grab a different stamp. This one is a spatter stamp. Your stamps are going to give different colors how many times you use it. I want to show you on my paper here. It's just called first, second, third generation stamping. Once you ink your stamp up, when you stamp it on the paper, that's called first generation. It's going to give you one color. Every time you stamp it, it's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter and give you different colors. So you can use that to your advantage when you're stamping to get different looks on there. You also have to remember, if you stamp along one side of something and then you go back and stamp that stamp on something else, you're going to have an edge. I'm going to go off the edge here. So I stamp on my paper there. Now there's a space that didn't stamp, so when I do it next time, there's going to be a dark space in the middle. So you have to be aware of that so you don't do something you don't want to do. So let me get this out of the way. And sorry about that. Anyway, we're going to continue on that same background piece then. It's got the lettering on it, and I wanted to do some light spattering over it. So just stamp off to the side, and then I can stamp on here. And you can do that wherever, however that you like doing it. So it's giving it layers, and a good thing with stamping is layering. When you're done, you can use the same colors because they still match. So now I'm going to use these dancing people here. And I'm on the same color I've been using, but because I'm not going to stamp on the paper first, it's going to give it a whole different look. So I'll stamp it on my page. It pops right out. So you can see how that looks. And we'll use a word stamp. And these really are for backgrounds, but you can use it for anything. You could make it something in itself. But the only thing we did on here, we used 2 stamp pads to do this. This was only 2 colors, 2 stamp pads, and a couple stamps, and you have a whole design, and that was so fast and extremely easy. So try that, use your stamps, use them in the ink, use them everywhere. So love stamps, love inks, so they're great. Okay, so for this one, over top of here, we have just more of these, more of the ink there. This is the one, check this out how this dried. We used less ink, and it was just letting it puddle and pool, part of it drying with the heat tool, part of it just letting it go. That was good. Okay, this is the one so far, and again, this is so far with the salt. You can see the salt that's all over there. As soon as that dries, we'll brush it off, and it will be more fun with that. And then this is the one with just the inks and stamps. So save these paper towels. Look at this one again. This is one I just used today, and this is just stuff we picked up off of cleaning the paper off. So keep these, and we're going to use this in our next project, which is going to be paper towel backgrounds, and that is one of my absolute favorites. So I'll see you for the next one. I hope you had fun.